In this video, we will be discussing the anatomy of the female Extatosoma tiaratum in full detail. In the past, we have published videos about the male Extatosoma tiaratum anatomy. These videos will be linked in the description for your convenience. In this video, we will only be talking about the external anatomy. Part 2 will be about the internal anatomy. We will first begin with a quick view of the structures and then move on to more detailed information. Let's start with the dorsal external view. Starting from the top and making our way down, we have the head, which features two filiform antennae. The dorsal view of the head also consists of 3 simple eyes. Now remember, we are currently only looking at the dorsal structures, so we talk about the mouth parts and the compound eyes later on. And then, after the head, we have the thorax, which is separated into 3 parts: the prothorax, the mesothorax, and the metathorax, and includes the fore and hind wings. Moving further down the insect, we also have the abdomen, which is separated into 10 segments, which includes the anus and genitalia area. On average, female stick insects can reach a length of around 20 centimeters. Now let's get into more descriptive detail about the dorsal external structures of the head. The Extatosoma tiaratum head is hypognathous. This means that the mouth parts are located ventrally. When you compare the antennae of both sexes of Extatosoma tiaratum, you will notice that the female's antennae are smaller than the male's. This is because the male is the one that goes looking for females to breed with, so he requires to be a bit more aware of his surroundings. Each antennae has 21 segments, some smaller than others, and the whole antennae is on average 1.5 centimeters long. The first part of the antenna is called the scape, which is mounted into a specialized socket that enables the insect to move the antenna as a whole. The second segment is called the pedicle. This very small segment contains the Johnson's organ. This organ consists of a collection of sensory cells that detects motion in the flagellum. The remaining antenna segments, called flagellomeres, make up the flagellum. The entire antenna is covered with small hairs called sensory setae, which helps the insect locate its surroundings. Now let's talk about the 3 simple eyes called ocelli. These eyes are used as horizon detectors, enabling the insect to make fast corrections during flight. But because female Extatosoma tiaratum lack the ability to fly, they have drastically smaller ocelli compared to the male. At the top of the conical occiput, female giant prickly stick insects have a cluster of thorny spines that act as protection against predators. This finishes up the dorsal external anatomy of the head. Now we can move on to the dorsal external anatomy of the thorax. The first segment of the thorax is called the prothorax. The dorsal view of the prothorax contains no major structures, and it is also the smallest segment of the 3 thorax segments. The prothorax usually contains 10 spines, 2 at each corner and 2 in the middle. Both the prothorax joints that connect it to the head and to the mesothorax are rather flexible. The flexible head joint allows the insect to freely move its head around for better food intake and better vision. The flexible mesothorax joint enables the insect to bend its body and break through its exoskeleton during apolysis. For more information about the molting process, check out our video called The Complete Molting Process of the Stick Insect Extatosoma tiaratum. The link will be in the description. The mesothorax is a bit more interesting, as it contains the forewings. The forewings are the shape of a raindrop and contain small orange veins. These wings cover the hind wings completely. The third and last segment of the thorax is called the metathorax. The dorsal view of this segment contains the very small hind wings. These wings lack the thin membranous material that you'll find on male hind wings. This finishes up the dorsal view of the thorax, which means we can now move on to the abdomen. The first abdominal segment is called the median segment. This segment is fused to the dorsal side of the metathorax, but cannot be seen ventrally. The first 4 segments of the abdomen contain spines, with 2 larger ones in the middle. Abdominal segments 5 and 6 contain 2 spiny lobes. Segments 7, 8 and 9 usually only contain 2 very small spines per segment, and the 10th segment does not contain any, but it does contain the anus, which is triangular in shape. Just at the bottom of the anus, 2 cerci can be observed. These act as sensory organs which are used during copulation. This completes the dorsal view of the external anatomy. Now we can move on to the lateral view. Laterally, the head of the female Extatosoma tiaratum consists of 2 compound eyes, one on each side of the head. The thorax contains the exocrine defense gland and 6 long legs, and the lateral view of the abdomen consists of spiracles, abdominal lobes, and the copulatory and ovipository structures. Now let's get into further detail about the lateral view, starting with the head. The compound eyes consist of thousands of tiny hexagonal tubes called ommatidia. Each has its own lens in the front and its own cluster of light-sensing cells at the back. The tubes form an interlocking carpet that wraps around the insect's head. The image formed is a mosaic, and each tube contributes to one piece of the image they form. This finishes the lateral view of the head. Now we can move to the thorax. On each side of the prothorax is a small exocrine defense gland. This gland produces a toffee-smelling pheromone which is used to deter predators away. Female insects are able to produce a lot more of this pheromone than males, since females have to rely more on this pheromone to keep predators away due to them not having their ability to fly like males do. The prothorax also contains the forelegs, which are the second longest legs of the 3 pairs. Each leg consists of a coxa, a femur, a tibia, 5 tarsals and a pair of tarsal claws. On the bottom of each tarsal lies small suction pads called euplantula. Between the tarsal claws lies another, larger suction pad called the aerolium. These pads further help the insect grip the branches. The mesothorax contains the middle legs, which are the smallest of the 3 pairs. The metathorax contains the hind legs, which are the longest of the 3 pairs. The spikes on these legs are so large and tough that they can draw blood if your fingers get pinched between them. Each leg contains large lobes, which help the insect camouflage against the eucalyptus leaves. This finishes up the lateral view of the thorax, which means we can now move on to the lateral view of the abdomen. If the specimen you are dissecting was mature and died of old age, the abdomen will be very inflated with plenty of loose skin. This is because the female has thrown away the majority of her eggs before she died. If your specimen died shortly before maturing, she will also have a very thin abdomen due to not having enough time to develop eggs. If your specimen was a mature female that died of some other cause, her abdomen may be very fat and heavy. This is because she is still full of eggs that she did not get to throw. Abdominal segments 2 to 7 contain a pair of spiracles, one on both sides of each segment, making up a total of 14. These spiracles are the breathing apparatus of the insect. Abdominal segments 5, 6 and 7 also contain lobes much like the ones seen on the legs, which further help camouflage the insect amongst leaves. Abdominal segments 8, 9 and 10 include the copulatory and ovipository structures. The operculum is a long covering that covers the genital openings of females. In males, this is called the operculum. These long spine-like appendages are ovipositor valves. They cradle the eggs while the female flings them to the ground. This finishes the lateral view of the female Extatosoma tiaratum. Now we can have a look at the ventral view. Let's start with the head. Briefly, the ventral view of the head consists of the mouth parts. Moving down, the thorax only exhibits spines. The ventral view of the abdomen also has plenty of spines. On the underside of the operculum is a small protruding lobe. Now for further detail. The mouth parts include the labrum and labium. These structures act as the upper and lower lip and help hold food as the insect eats. The maxillary pulps and labial pulps are used to move food into the mandibles. Further behind these structures lies the mandibles. These structures are lined with teeth called denticles, which help cut through leaf litter. Moving down to the thorax, on average the prothorax has 4 small spikes. The mesothorax generally contains no spikes, whereas the metathorax on average contains around 23. Last but not least, let's talk about the ventral view of the abdomen in further detail. All the abdominal segments down to the operculum contain a number of spikes. Generally, the first couple of segments contain the most. Although the small lobe of the operculum may look like it has no purpose, it actually has something to do with breeding. This lobe is what the male grabs onto with his suction pad that is located just under his 9th abdominal segment. This is done during copulation, allowing him to fertilize eggs more easily. And that finishes up this video. I hope you have learned a thing or two about the anatomy of the female Extatosoma tiaratum. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our next video, which will be all about the internal anatomy of the female giant prickly stick insect.